right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the social, and before the social, real quick, welcome to the Community Fireside Chat. I'm Chris Hart. I'm going to be your host today. I'm representing MWUE, or Mid-Atlantic Underwater Explorers. We've just started this year. We're in the DC area, in Virginia, North Carolina, those areas. So if you're ever in that area and like to do some dives, please hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. In addition to that, I've also helped out with Midwest Underwater Explorers, who are here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the mic around, and each person's going to introduce themselves, and then we're just going to ask a couple questions and just have a great conversation. So first up.
I guess I'm it. My name is Doug Junkins. I'm from GUE Seattle, and just in terms of background, my GUE experience has really been a COVID experience. I took fundamentals just before COVID, shut everything down, and then have been working with the GUE Seattle community to try and keep and maintain that community throughout some of the struggles we've had throughout COVID. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Peter Gärtner from Germany, and my role more or less is to support and coordinate the different communities within Germany. Although Germany is not a big country, you could drive through it in maybe 10 hours. I bet we have like 15 communities plus a lot of like WhatsApp lists where people meet up, and I try to bring it together, coordinate, help with conflicts, or help the communities to develop a little bit.
Hello, I'm Graham. I teach GUE all over the world. I'm in the lucky position to do that, and the benefit of that is I get to interact and help communities grow globally. So people who often don't speak English, but underwater it's all the same language, which is pretty cool.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelly Cole, GUE instructor here in Florida, actually the creator of Panama City Underwater Explorers, PCUE. We're actually one of the newest communities that we started this year, actually. And kind of our goal behind PCUE is kind of bringing more diving to the Panhandle here in Florida, and shipwreck diving, as well as documentation diving around on the shipwrecks, mini shipwrecks that we have there in Panama City. So I'm going to pass the mic off to our director for our project baseline, Kyle.
Hi, my name is Kyle Cooper. I'm with PCUE as well, and we kind of manage the project baseline thing, and that's the way we're trying to help get other divers involved in the community.
Hi everyone, my name is James Salmon. I'm on the board of directors of Midwest Underwater Explorers. I'm sat next to our president, so I'll hand off to him to tell you more about that.
Hello, I'm Marcus Doshi, and I am currently serving as the president of the board of Midwest Underwater Explorers. Our community is relatively new. It's about 5 years old. It started as a Facebook, and we've been growing through time. We are happy to announce here that as of 3 weeks ago, we've become a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're hoping to parlay that into helping us do lots of baseline initiatives in the Great Lakes. Our territory theoretically covers Minnesota down to Missouri, across Kentucky and up to Ohio and everything in between. So we're covering a lot of the area in the Great Lakes.
Hello, everybody. Brad Skeel, Panama City Underwater Explorers, as well as a member of Playa del Carmen Underwater Explorers as well. And as Kyle stated, we're doing Project Baseline and some other things, and we too are going to be kicking off the 501c3 process to really kind of formalize what we do and the mission that we've set out for ourselves. So,
hey everybody, Max Frankel here with SEUE, and our beautiful cameraman also sporting the SEUE wear. Thank you, Richie. We're a community primarily in Florida, Southeast Florida, but greater Southeast area as well, and we're just all about getting people in the water and kind of introducing people to the GUE system.
Very cool. Thanks, everybody. That's so many amazing communities. We're talking about global communities with Graham and Peter here. A lot of North American communities as well, including Mexico with Playa del Carmen. So it's so nice to have you here. And thanks. We were kind of in the planning stages to getting this together and we're really excited for you all to be here and kind of represent. So we have 11 questions that we're going to kind of go through, and it's just a round robin. Whoever wants to pick up is more than happy to pick up the first question. So I'll get right into it. So GUE, we're known for our solid and supportive community of divers. Can you talk about how your community has evolved and what makes it unique? All right, Marcus.
You're staring at me. I hate you, Chris Hart. I think one of the things that is okay. So I'd like to talk about myself as a case study of how Midwest Underwater Explorers has gotten people involved. I think I got certified by Patty in 2019, and I connected with Midwest Underwater Explorers through this guy on Facebook, and the next thing I know, we were Zooming, and that guy happened to be you. And so I was welcomed open arms, not knowing very much about GUE, into the Midwest Underwater Explorers group. And through that, I ended up coming up and taking fundies with Mare and Max, and then have taken Tech 1, and I'm about to take Cave 1. And the ethos of the community, I think, is about that outward-facing openness. In the Midwest, there's like some people have a impression of what GUE is as a closed-minded shop, and we're working really hard to make sure that anybody who's interested in diving can come in and be part of the community. And if they're into what the kind of perspective we give to diving, then that's great. And if they're not, they can maybe do whatever they want with it. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that we find in Seattle, and the way we look at diving is, in Seattle with the cold water and the lack of visibility, every dive, even if you're only going down to 50 feet, is a technical dive because there are constraints in terms of visibility and every dry suit preferably given the cold water. And what we found in the greater diving community in Seattle is there's a lot of people that are just really ill prepared for that and the challenges that come with cold water diving in the Puget Sound. So what we've done is we have our Wednesday night dives where we make it clear that anyone who has any cold water experience and is certified and active can come and dive with us, so we can demonstrate kind of the benefits of having a little more structured approach to your diving, let's say, and try and bring up the entire Seattle diving community in that regard. Some people, like what they see and they join the GUE Seattle organization. Others sometimes just show up for the Wednesday night dive to dive with us, and that's okay. We're trying to keep open door policy for all of that. So.
I was just going to say, Doug, it's been great. I've noticed your Wednesday dives on Facebook all the time, and every time I see it, I want to join it. And I'm like, oh, it's like 2,500 miles away. So it's a little bit, yeah, right on. Go ahead.
One of the unique experiences that I've also seen, I mean, just when we started and put together Panama City Underwater Explorers was, the mission behind it was kind of to document and bring more awareness to some of the shipwrecks that we have there locally. But we didn't discriminate at all. We allowed any diver to come in and actually attend and help with a lot of the projects that we have, just going down there if it's just simple taking pictures or visibility reports or depth and temperature or what we see down there. And what we found is that there's been several that have kind of latched on to the GUE way of diving, and they've seen the value of how that platform works within some of these smaller scale projects. And from that, we've actually got kind of a little bit of an influx of folks coming out more regularly on the boat and then seeking questions of, oh, well, how do you do this? Or tell me about these doubles, or let's do a dry suit primer. So a lot of the primer entry level courses have been beneficial too, where it's in turn like growing the community little bits at a time. So
yeah, it's awesome too, because when I did Tech 1 with Guy on your boat, and that was my first time ever going to Panama City, and it not only was all the amenities in the area amazing, the dive shop's amazing, there's restaurants, but I've never dove those wrecks or those areas, and now I want to go back and I tell people about it. And now that you guys have a community started, it'll be a lot of fun, and we can like organize and maybe get some people together.
Can I just say a thing? You know, that's a really good point, Chris, about one of the things that I think is great about these communities is about how we can sort of lubricate the ability for people to go to other places and dive. Case in point, I did a show out in Seattle a year and a half ago and got hooked up with, I like called 8 and then they hooked me up with some people and I was diving and had tanks and everything. It was super easy, you know, so like I think that that's one of the great things about this kind of connection that you're making.
Just adding into those things, we like to be very structured with it. So issuing that GUE plan on the Facebook so they see, hey, this organization is thinking about things to include our safety. Then also, hey, do our GUE Edge, and at the end, do the debrief. So providing a structure so folks can see, oh, there's some benefits to this and something I didn't think about before.
Yeah, sure.
So kind of to add on to what Marcus said, you know, I think one of the things that we really want to encourage, and something Seattle has been kind of working with, especially with other West Coast communities, because, you know, there's a lot of people that go up and down the coast doing different dives. So between so with like Seattle and British Columbia underwater explorers, hi Jason, and you know, the different California underwater explorer organizations, we're trying to do much more cross collaboration with them, and you know, have joint trips and things like that when there's an activity taking place in one of the communities that we try and that might be beneficial for people from another community to join. So that cross community collaboration is really important to keep growing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ooh, that was loud. Sorry. No, that's awesome. It's so true, and it's kind of a great segue into the next question. And as GUE, we all know, and especially the instructors that are sitting here with us that have helped create communities, there's a network of instructors. And what I love to talk about GUE instruction a little bit, it's always felt like, to me, it was more like a mentorship than it was just getting a class. Every instructor I've had the chance to work with, whether it was Cave 1, Tech 1, Fundamentals, all the way to ITC, I've just had an amazing experience and learned so much from you all. So what are the communities doing with instructors now, some of the communities that might not have instructors locally? I am looking at you, Marcus.
One of the unfortunate things about the Midwest is that there are no local instructors. And so we are an instructor agnostic community. But what we've been doing is helping facilitate instructors coming up to the Midwest, helping with logistics and that sort of thing, so that we can offer classes up there. And we've been really lucky in the last, I think, 4 months. I don't know, when was John up here? It was in June. So maybe in the last 4 months, we've had 2 full fundamentals classes hosted in the Midwest, one in Illinois and one in Ohio. And we've got another one lined up, I think, for early
May,
next
right?
May,
I think
yeah,
May,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's great, yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's something that, you know, in Mid-Owie for us, or at least the Mid-Atlantic, we've got some wonderful instructors that are up north in New York and Connecticut, and I'm hoping to get a chance to meet them over the conference and discuss, hey, how can they come down and help us get more people, into fundamentals and that kind of thing as well. With that said, the next one kind of talks about how GUE has a strong focus on safety and risk management. We talked about risk management today at the instructor meeting, and it was really insightful to hear Alton talk about that a little bit. With that, so how does your community promote a safety culture among its members, and what are some of the best practices that your divers follow?
You know, I think realistically speaking, the GUE system integrates a lot of safety into every element of it. So just having a community that's always on the same page, performing the pre-dive checks, exerting a level of reasonable analysis of the dive. Is this a smart dive, or are we, jumping off the back of a boat in a single illuminator going to 150 feet, which some people do in Florida? I think simply by adhering to a lot of the practices that GUE teaches and having a community that embraces that really covers probably 95, 99% of a lot of the things that you can do.
Go ahead, Kelly.
One of the things I was going to say is you know, in the early days with me diving, I mean, of course, we made a lot of mistakes and so on, but when I found the GUE system, I found a lot of the safety protocols and the processes kind of finding its way into everyday life. You know, if it's anything between running a dive shop or running a charter operation, having that level of safety conscience is, you know, that process and kind of methodologies and looking at all aspects of being able to, you know, insulate the divers from the risk involved. It's been greatly helpful. I mean, especially even with our local community. I mean, one way we also like to kind of enforce that or help the community is by offering doing the workshop days where, you know, we're bringing a group of divers together. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody who has taken fundamentals. It could be of any level diver. And say, okay, let's just talk a little bit about buoyancy control. You know, let's emphasize breathing patterns. Let's talk about how to be able to get more comfortable, and training those divers and kind of getting them a little bit more comfortable in the environment that we're recreating in. And that's kind of rolls over, and again, in all aspects. If it's walking into the dive shop and having the staff to be able to kind of steer that person in the right direction when they're making, you know, choices on training, or they're making choices on equipment, you know, or when they're coming on the boat and say, oh, taking the boat to certain selective sites that are going to be more conducive for those folks to maximize their training and experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, like when I was with Ricky and Mike and we were starting MWUE at the time, Midwestern Underwater Explorers, we were really looking into that. We even had like Ricky made a safety board, and with like little numbers and all kinds of stuff. We were just trying to find better ways and how to promote a safe, just culture. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you just used the word just culture, because I think one of the most important thing that we can do as leaders is model that. So modeling a community of psychological safety where it's also okay to sort of point out to somebody, hey, we actually need to get back on the same page about this, or not from a sense of call-out culture, but a sense of calling in and saying, hey, you know, like let's model this for us, and then other people on the boat or at the dive site or whatever see us doing that, and then they suddenly say, oh, this is a community where we can communicate like that, and it's a great thing all around.
Yeah, very cool. And during the meeting today, they talked the importance about emergency action plans as well. And that's something that I want to instill into MWUE is, you know, if we do have a dive plan, you know, or if we're having some divers come, just have that kind of local emergency action plan, talk with the shop or the dive center that we're with, find out where their oxygen is, their, you know, first aid kits, those kind of things, just that simple stuff that makes it a little bit better. I feel like our international colleagues are over there, and I want to include you guys in the conversation. How do you all bridge the cultural and linguistic differences to foster international collaboration?
So for us, the problem always starts in front of our door, because mentalities in Germany, north to south, are already very different, and we have to mediate that. On the other hand, we have a lot of holidays, so we travel a lot, and this is like people get a lot in contact with divers from all around the world. So this is like a natural thing already, getting in contact. And this is one of the benefits of the communities. I mean, you hear where you can go diving, where you can do which dives, which dive shop, which dive center you could use. And this is a little bit a natural thing how it goes on. And as well, there is a lot of exchange between the groups, because people are traveling in Germany as well, and they meet each other at different dive spots. And this is how, I mean, more or less everybody is somehow connected to everybody, even though you would be in different communities, because it's your local community.
Very cool, very cool. And Graham, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think the really nice thing about the GUE system is it doesn't matter what language you speak. The standardized approach, you know what's in somebody's dry suit pockets. You more or less know what they're going to do diving-wise, where they're going to be, and how they're going to behave in a stressful situation. So that really makes it easy to have a global approach, like G global, right? So, but it really helps in a local community, but also when you have visiting divers and when you travel internationally, having everybody on the same page is a real bonus, and it makes everything super easy. And for me, I'm in a really privileged position to travel around, but I can do some very aggressive diving in the sort of 400-foot range with someone I've barely met before. It really is the shake hands and go diving, and you don't have to be doing 400-foot dives to appreciate that benefit, even on your 30-foot reef dive or your local lake or quarry. Just knowing where someone's going to be, what they're doing with their light, what they're going to do if something happens, and if you come to them doing this, you can expect a certain action, and it kind of makes everything safe, and it makes it super easy to dive together. And really, with a limited understanding of somebody else's language, you can muddle through a GUE edge and go diving, and it's just great, and it sort of fills you with that confidence and enjoyment, and really gives you the opportunity to move around all over the place. And the other benefit with a traveling diver is you don't usually bring tanks, for example, super heavy. The airlines aren't super happy with pressurized cylinders on aircraft, but you turn up and you know exactly the tanks are going to be set up how you're expecting, and you just bolt on and go.
Ready to go.
And exactly what will be in the tanks, and for a range of diving. You don't need to do all this discussion points. It's already done, and it's a real benefit for the whole community. So it's great.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, it's so cool. At some point in time, I want to go back to Korea, but I actually want to dive Korea. And the fact of, I don't know if they're here yet, but if they are, I'm going to talk to them at some point so I can, exchange numbers or emails and get a chance to dive over there. But, even if there's a language barrier, there's a chance that we can all dive together, just knowing the standards and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's a privilege to speak English, so it is kind of the international language, and it does make us lazy, but there's usually someone in every community who speaks a little bit of English and can dial you in, and Korea is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
But if you go to Korea, make sure you stop for food 3 times a day. That's my recommendation.
100%. That comes, the sense of community as the smoke billows over towards us. The sense of community is very important. And what I'm getting at here is coming through GUE, it's not easy, right? Every certification that you get is earned. And it's the only agency that does that. And I think there's something special about having to earn your own certification. And as someone that has probably provisionaled every class and wrote an article about it in Quest, I want to talk to you guys and see what you all do let me get the question here. How has your community come together to support one another in times of need, or to lift members needing an extra hand or encouragement to get through the training?
In Seattle, we are lucky to have a good set of instructors too. So what we do is, our instructors know when they have a student that needs some practice, needs some help to get through a provisional or kind of tie things up. They can reach out to any of the members of the community and say, hey, can you dive with this person, and set them up to have teammates that they can work with and dive regularly. And there's the Wednesday night dives, but even outside of that, when there are specific skills that need practice, we have people that are always open and willing to work with students to help them achieve those goals.
That's awesome. And those Wednesday dives help, I'm sure.
Yeah, they do a lot. Yeah.
Very cool, Graham.
I think coming at this from an instructor point of view as well, it's a real benefit for an instructor to know they're releasing students back into a supportive community. And often a lot of the learning gets sedimented after the class, and if you've got people in the community who've been through that process.
Just real quick, we just talked about how each community helps each other out, whether somebody might be struggling or trying to work on something, and we kind of come together in that mentorship and are able to lift each other up and become better within the community. One thing I want to kind of talk about just real quick, we have 2 questions left. But it really is that mentorship aspect of the instructors that instill in us, and then we kind of follow along in that path. And that's the only thing in any other diving agency, and I'm an instructor for PADI, but I've never really seen that. except for GUE. And then quick shout out to Nova Southeastern's academic dive program. They do it too, and when I was in college. So it's really great to see, and it really meant a lot to me, and it means a lot that I know that the instructors actually care. And you all definitely really care about your students, and it's very important. You did care about me, man. Yeah, go ahead.
One quick thing to add is that, you know, I mean, 20 years Air Force and retire and so on and going through the military, you start your military career going through basic training, and you develop a bond with like your fellow military members, and you have this brother and sisterhood and that sense of family and community. And a lot of that has kind of rolled into the GUE community as well, and the same, because everybody's like, oh man, I remember my friend. Oh man, I remember I was struggling with that. Oh man, that was something I was dealing with the whole time. And so we have that close-knit connection and being able to relate, the struggles that we all went through to get to where we are today. And it's very similar to having that military bond as well. So that's one of the things that actually drew me to GUE, is the fact that it had that very close-knit community.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I'm also a veteran, and Doug is too. It definitely meant a lot to me. I'm trying to find that purpose after I left the service. So going into the last two questions, it's more kind of a pitch for you all to give an opportunity to say something to not only to HQ, but also kind of pitch your community out to the group here. The first one is, looking ahead, what are some ways that your community will continue to evolve and grow in the coming years, and how can members stay engaged and get involved? Or how can new members get involved?
I'll touch on this one just quick. I'll pass it down. I mean, so there are a lot of the programs that we're doing just with the project-based diving, getting local people involved. It's hey, come out, let's go do some diving. We're going to be doing X, Y, Z on this shipwreck today, and kind of giving them a sense of purpose and assigning them a simple task to say, hey, I need you to go down there and count how many amber you have to see, or how many Goliath creepers, or what's the visibility, or what's the temperature. And then at the end of the dive, they come up, man, that was really cool, that was exciting, and having like real data points to be able to utilize, that gives them that sense of breeds that sense of pride and that sense of involvement. And I see that kind of trickling into other aspects of like, okay, I want to be more involved, I want to be more of this. By being involved with project baseline stuff.
I think the most important thing is that scuba diving should be fun. Like, nobody's holding a gun to our head to go scuba diving. So,
absolutely,
everything that we can do to make it fun for everybody else is great. One of the things that we're doing at MWUE is we're working on a project to install simple baseline stations on some of the most traveled wrecks in Lake Michigan. And we're going to install a temperature sensor and a way of measuring our visibility. And then on each of the charter boats, we're going to create a series of QR codes for each wreck with an instruction sheet. So any diver who wants to can go down there and measure the temperature and the visibility, come up back on the boat, pop a QR code, and upload that data into a Google spreadsheet. And so what we're hoping to do is collect data points about what's going on in Lake Michigan. We've got the tiger mussel infestation. So we're trying to create some citizen science initiatives to give purpose. And the great thing about that is that somebody's going to come up and be like, there'll be one person on the boat who does this. They'll pop that QR code, and underneath it's going to be a logo that says Midwest Underwater Explorers. And they're going to be like, what's this?
Nice.
Click the link.
Nice.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
No, that's awesome. And I'm really stoked. I can't wait to get back to Lake Michigan and do some of that work and help you all out. I know, Max, I know you've got some awesome DPD stuff going on. Is the community helping with that? No pressure.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like to inspire people to dive by doing fun diving, and I think that's a great way to do it. As Marcus was saying, diving should be fun. It doesn't all need to be skills and practice. And so I remember when I started diving, I'd see someone do a really cool dive, and I think, wow, one day I'd like to do that dive. And, I kind of hope that I'm doing a little bit of that myself today, as I do a really cool dive, and someone says, wow, one day I'd like to do that. And I would like to be able to help people who I enjoy working with to be able to reach that, reach that skill set and reach that progression. So I think showing people diving is fun, is a great way to build community and to help people grow as divers.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, so in Seattle, Seattle has a long maritime history, and with a long maritime history comes with a lot of shipwrecks. So in the Puget Sound, with the currents and the salt water, wrecks don't last very long, so there's not a lot of really great wreck dives there that are, especially, even Tech 1 level. But we also have Lake Washington and Lake Union, in the city, which also have a lot of maritime. So what GUE Seattle has been doing is working with a local side scan sonar company and looking at all of the different targets in Lake Union, Lake Washington, especially ones that are in the 100 to 200 foot range, and really starting to try and identify what those wrecks are, diving on them, sometimes even getting special permits from the city of Seattle to dive in Lake Union, which is not open to anyone dive. So we're working with that company, and we're publishing that information for the diving community as a whole in Seattle. So people can kind of see what dives there are out there to be done, and what some of the parameters for doing those dives are. So that's one of the things that we're really trying to focus on with our community and getting people interested in continuing to explore those wrecks.
Very cool.
So what I have seen with quite a number of communities now, most of the time it depends on a relatively small group being active. And as long as you have this core group, you have enough people joining, having fun, contributing, whatever, but it's always depending on this core group. And once they, they do different stuff or go diving somewhere else, then this community slowly gets smaller, dies, whatever. So that's really important.
Yeah. It kind of happened with us, with MWUE, and it's happening now with MWUE as well. Having those people that actually start the events and make sure they happen and that kind of thing, it can be a little cumbersome at first, but I think it starts to work itself out later on.
I think if I can just offer a few words of encouragement, these communities often start because of a class, and then people get into passing the class or rectifying some problems that they had. But of course that's important, you need to practice, but don't valve drill yourself into submission. You have to go out and dive and have some fun. And having objectives like measuring temperature or seeing new cool stuff is really important. So, of course, you need to practice occasionally. And if you're building up to a class, that's important. But don't lose sight of why you started diving, which was for fun. And all that practice allows you to have more fun. Yeah. So don't lose sight of that for anybody out there trying to build a community.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think we're all in agreement. We all shook our heads, yes, make sure you have fun diving. Because if you lose that fun, it's why even do it? All right, last question, and it's really important as I raise my voice a little bit. I don't know who's over there, but what could HQ do to help support your community in the future? Not a loaded question.
It's totally a loaded question. I think the thing that I'm thinking about with all these people around the table is how can we create more contact between the community leaders? And I think the single biggest thing that HQ could do would be to help curate that.
Okay.
So that if there were somebody who could pull the puppet strings and say, let's get a
fireside chat,
or a fireside chat, or a quarterly forum on Zoom.
Okay.
Here are all the leaders of the communities, and here are the challenges that we're facing. Here are some of our success stories. How can we cross-pollinate ideas? That sort of thing. I'd love to do that. So even if HQ doesn't help, let's make that happen.
No, that sounds good.
Yeah, and I think the second thing that would be really useful is as these communities grow and become more formalized, a little bit of help understanding what the liability or legal concerns we might be encountering could be.
No, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I don't know if Brad's here, but that's something we could chat with Brad about after this.
One thing that I would definitely say would be really helpful is basically just the overall exposure of the different communities. We recently had the opportunity where we were actually on the news, and one of the things I described when I was talking a little bit about GUE was we have local chapters all around the world. Yeah. And these chapters, you know, making up our global community as a whole. And one thing that HQ could do that would be beneficial is just the overall like social media presence, where if let's say a certain community is doing some form of an event or working a project or something along those lines, putting that out on social media is really helpful, because everybody has the following of HQ, but not everybody has the following of GUE Seattle or PCUE or so on. And that's one of the things that if they're kind of giving a shout out to these different chapters around the world and saying, hey, this community is doing this, they've got this project going on, and maybe sharing some photos or any just information about the local projects going on, that would kind of bring a global awareness to what's going on locally.
No, I totally agree. And as a member of the marketing team, now I know, so I will make sure we'll change that up.
So I just wanted to add to the first bit of HQ. Rich Denmark here, representing SEUE. I helped found SEUE years ago now with the help of Andrew Dow. And at the same time that we got that going, I started a Facebook group called GUE Community Leadership, because I was also the marketing director for GUE for quite some time. And so I would man the Facebook pretty often and help try to get all of these communities together, join them, see what was going on, pull from them for any marketing that I was doing. So, if you've got your community going, make sure you're tagging GUE HQ so they see what you're doing, and, send them direct messages if you've got something that's really special, important going on. They're going to definitely share it if they receive it. It's just, the amount of content that's coming in and across people's world is, a lot sometimes.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool. Thanks, Richie.
That's great. Yeah, totally. Doing it right now.
So I think, it could be even as simple as having a directory of communities available. That right now, communities, as they form, they kind of get or word of mouth knowledge about when a new community exists. Just having some sort of directory of communities would be a big benefit. And if you use the same thing to build some sort of organization of the leaders from the communities to have, coordination between communities, that would be, a cherry on top. But just a directory would be a huge benefit.
Can I add one other thing, Chris?
Yes.
I think also it would be great, if HQ wants to start sort of formalizing or feeding into how the communities communicate and that sort of thing, I think it's also important for HQ to realize that all of these communities are self-generated, and we all generate for slightly different reasons and slightly different ways organizationally, and just being mindful of that, I think, is important.
No, absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have today for the Fireside Chat. Guys, thank you so much for joining. It's been a huge pleasure. Hopefully you all out there enjoyed it. It looks like we do have a little bit of an audience, but I'm pretty sure everybody's really excited for the band. So I'm going to turn it over to the band as Andy turns around. I'll turn it over to the band, and thank you all again. It's been a huge, huge pleasure. So thanks.